Tracey, thank you for coming and talking to us today about the project that you've been working on. We're going to walk you through a process within peer coaching that's referred to as the wows and wonders. So I'm going to explain that process now, and then we're going to work with you through that process, and hopefully we might be able to help you move forward with the project in terms of where you're at this particular point in time. So the wows and wonders is a process where we generally form groups of around about 4 people. We've got 3 here today, but it will still work fine. And there are 7 steps to the process. So basically you as the presenter, Kylie is one of the listeners. I'm also a listener but a facilitator, and so my role in this process is to make sure that all of the steps in the protocol are followed and that we adhere to a fairly sort of rigid time frame that's structured around those different steps that have to take place. Your role in the process is simply to share with us the project that you are working on and to toss a few things out our way in terms of aspects of your project that you feel may be presenting a challenge to you. We as the listeners are then going to walk through this process with you and hopefully give you some sort of recognition as to what you've achieved to this point in time, but also give you some feedback in terms of directions that you might take with any challenges that you are experiencing in your project. So the 7 steps follow this process. Basically, once I've outlined the project, once I've outlined the process, you are then going to spend about 5 minutes of our time where you're going to share with us the project you're working on. During that 5 minutes, we will say nothing. We will just listen actively. We will probably be taking notes, and you will just share everything about it, and including any challenge that you're feeling that you might be confronting during the time that you're working on your project. We're then going to take 5 minutes of time to actually go through our notes. So Kylie and I will do that, where we can actually go through what we've written down and start drafting maybe some ideas and also some questions that we would want to ask you to clarify our understanding of what the project is that you're working on. We will then take probably another 5 minutes to actually throw the clarifying questions back at you so we can get a better understanding of what you're sharing with us. Then we're going to go through our wows, and that's actually a really nice part of this process, in that we talk about the things that are the wow factor for us. And then we're going to go through the wonders, and that's where hopefully you will sit during both the wows and wonders and maybe take notes and listen to what we're tossing back at you, because they might be our thoughts around different directions that you might take with the challenges that you're experiencing. And then right at the end you get a 5 to 10 minute period of time where you can actually then give us feedback around what you've learnt from sitting through this particular process. Okay, so does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll kick off now. As I said, part of my role is to stick to the protocol here and make sure that we're on track and that we're sticking with what we should be doing. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock here, and when you're ready you can start sharing your project with us and we can go from there. Okay? Off you go.
Okay, so for last term and this term I've been commissioned as a project officer from Robin McCarahan to examine the feasibility of a school using the Big Picture platform. Big Picture has existed in Australia for about 5 or 6 years. They have a standalone school in Launceston in Tasmania and a number of inspired schools that have classes inside larger comprehensive schools. The reason for the commissioning of the project is because of the number of students who are disengaging from their learning. That's been demonstrated by Hunter Central Coast research over the last 5 or 6 years, looking at NAPLAN, looking at HSC data, looking at the new school leaving age. So it kind of ties in with a lot of the strategies that the department are using around the 15 to 19-year-old strategy of the new school leaving age, and also looking at the engagement of our middle schooling.
Thanks, Tracey. We will now probably take about another 5 minutes to go through our notes and just have a little bit of a silent reflection. And that'll give us a chance to then think of maybe some questions we might ask you in terms of clarifying our understanding of the project that you've just shared with us, and also get our heads around what we've jotted down here as well. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the clarifying questions now, and I'll let Kylie start. In terms of a question that you might want to ask Tracey to clarify your understanding of the project that she's shared with us, would you like to ask?
Just in terms of the challenges that you indicated that you would be facing as you go through developing this new project, you mentioned the advisor's role will sit outside the sit outside the current teacher's award. In what way, given that it's going to be a school, classed as a school, they have to be qualified teachers, so what will they be doing differently that will be different or go against the teachers award?
Okay, so in terms of the current teachers award has teachers in secondary high school teaching 28 periods out of 40 in their saturated subject area. So you're an English teacher, you're a HISI teacher, you're a maths teacher, you're a science teacher. So being an advisor means that you are operating at 1 to 17, so the ratios are very different, and then the role is very different. So where a regular teacher would teach 28 periods of English, this model has staff teaching students first and their subject second. So they may teach 17 students, and what they're doing is helping that student develop skills for life in terms of innovative practices, in terms of being able to find research, being able to locate particular people to help them, being able to ask questions, being able to get on the phone. So it's all of those skills for life that the advisor deals with first, and then the content is dealt with second. So where we go from an advisory of 1 to 17, then the rest of the day might be spent with the other 68 kids in the playground, across the learning commons that exist in the classes, and the students then work on their individual learning plans. So I might access you, Kylie, for my English essay that I'm working on because I want to understand where the jokes come from in The Simpsons, so I have to do an examination of American politics. I might see Justine and say to Justine, I really would like to present this using the skills that I've used on FreeMind on my DER computer, so can you help me with those? So you book in with different staff members who aren't necessarily your advisor, so you're sort of on class all day instead of teaching, sort of 28 periods. But then we have that health and wellbeing time. Students operate on an internship 1 day a week, so those teachers would have that time for preparation and getting themselves organised in terms of the learning plans and what those students need. Teachers then write a narrative about the students that is about 2 pages long at the end of every term to report on their learning for the term. So the platform is completely different. There's still a teacher, they're still there doing that job, but the role is fairly significantly different. So it sits outside the award in that way. Pay would still be the same. Conditions in terms of, times of a start time and a finish time for teaching would still operate, but it certainly operates outside the award of time spent face to face.
I actually have one question that I'd like to ask, so just going a bit beyond the time limit, which isn't good for me as a facilitator. You mentioned enrolling families. One of the challenge was enrolling families. Now that's a really foreign term when you think of schools, in that we enrol students but not families. So can you give me some more information around the concept of enrolling families in terms of your project?
So Big Picture Education deals with 12 distinguishers, and those distinguishers are not negotiable if you take on that Big Picture platform. One of those is that families are enrolled too. So families make a commitment in their intake interview to be a part of that student learning, and they make a commitment to be in the school 8 times a year. So they come into school for the development of the learning plan, and then they come to see the fruition of that through the exhibition.
Thanks, Tracey. That makes more sense. Okay, well now we'll probably move on to the next step of our process, and that's focusing on the wows. So we'll probably spend 5 minutes now just giving you our wows in terms of what you've shared with us to this point in time. So Kylie, do you want to start? Have you got any wows about Tracey's project?
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you and your team are going to be providing a unique learning opportunity for young people that, for whatever reasons, have disengaged in their learning and possibly, their life outside of school, but also their families as well, giving both the young people and their families the opportunity to succeed. And I can see that, by doing it, that holistic approach, you're not just focusing on those 6 hours a day, but giving the young children or the young adults the opportunity and the families to use those skills and to generalise those skills out in the community, which is obviously where we always intend for young people to succeed and to upskill them for that. I think in the environment that you're going to provide, it is a wonderful and unique opportunity, and to start a project that hasn't occurred in New South Wales before is extremely exciting, and to know that you've been part of providing that opportunity must be a fantastic feeling.
One of the big wows for me was when you said that you were talking about the advisory role of the teachers, and when you said that the teachers would teach the students first and their subjects second. Now that tends to fly in the face of the way we are in terms of being teachers and knowing our subject matter and then teaching that to our students. That to me was a real wow factor, because it was focusing on the student. Right, Tracey, so now what we're going to do is go into the second last step of the protocol that we're following, and that's looking at the wonders. So this is an opportunity for you to maybe take down some notes in terms of the wonders that we might pose to you, and they will be fairly directly linked to the challenges that you've discussed with us when you've presented your project to us. So Kylie, would you like to kick off with your wonders?
I was wondering, when you were talking about the challenge of ensuring that the students met the Board of Studies requirement for sport, I was wondering whether you had considered tapping into a resource such as one of the distance education centres around the state, or several of those, to look at how they ensure or how they meet the Board of Studies requirements, given they are two unique positions of having to meet those requirements but not having that face-to-face time with students.
Well, Tracey, I've got a couple of wonders. The first wonder I have is I'm wondering whether you had considered the potential of incorporating some peer coaching into the big picture school, in terms of linking in with the challenge that you mentioned about your concern with teachers getting their head around the new role they would be taking on if they were working in that school, in terms of being an advisor rather than a teacher. The other wonder I had was I'm wondering whether, in terms of being concerned about enrolling families and what families will need to do with regard their commitment to the big picture process, I'm wondering whether you had considered establishing some sort of social networking structure or framework for families, so that they could connect with each other and support each other online through the social networking sites, so that they could then linked together, and then maybe have that sort of rich discussion outside of the school setting. Okay, last step now, Tracey. This gives you a chance now to give your feedback to us and talk to us in terms of how you felt that process went, and whether there was something that you learned or picked up, and whether or not that's going to take you in a new direction with regard to the project that you're working on.
Definitely has had a great impact on me because the project is so new and there's not a lot of other people working in a similar way to how the platform operates. It's been really good for me to clarify what I know and understand about the project in terms of telling somebody else about it, because when you're in a project with other people, you tend to stick to those people and they all know what you're talking about. So it's been a great opportunity for me to be able to express the learning that I've had over the last 12 months with people with expertise still within the department, but outside of that new platform arena. So having Kylie's expertise around the idea of sport and distance ed, it was one thing that I hadn't considered. So that expertise has been, really important to tap into and get those other people's ideas from outside of the project, but still within the profession. So that has been fantastic. I hadn't thought about social networking. Given that families will enrol and come from quite a distance, there won't be that physicality of necessarily seeing one another, and it won't operate with a traditional P&C. So that has also been a really good way for me to think about what else I have to do. It's also brought up the fact that I haven't thought about a website, and that's something else I'll be able to go back and add to my list. So it's been very good for me in terms of clarifying what I'm doing in terms of the new role, but it's also been really great to have some feedback from outside of the bubble and still be able to rethink what I'm doing and hopefully go back and put it into practice when I restart. So I think it's been invaluable.
Oh, excellent. I'm really pleased. Well, Tracey, thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Kylie, for being involved and helping support what Tracey's doing. I would like to suggest that we could maybe get together again sometime further down the track when you've maybe taken some of these ideas and moved, closer to your sort of end, your target or your next milestone. That maybe we might be able to work through this process again, so that we might be able to continue to support you on your sort of little journey to seeing this all come to fruition. So
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Excellent.